right, welcome to our lesson on command of evidence textual. This is Unit 2, Lesson 1. Now, this is different than what's going to be coming up in our next unit on quantitative command of evidence. Here, we're going to be given lots of text. And when we're given the text, we're going to have to look for key pieces. And I hate to tell you, but the answers are long too. So this is where we're going to spend a little bit more time than some of our other questions. So the first thing we're going to make sure that we do is we review the claim or what it's asking of us. Then we're going to look back into the text to make sure that what we're answering is true. And with these types of questions, precision matters. If it's only half true, it's not true enough. And then finally, we're going to just match the questions and move on. Hey guys, it's Dr. Shell. Let's take a look at our command of evidence textual. Now, one of the best strategies you can do for any question is to take the extra 1 or 2 seconds to read what the prompt is asking, because then we need to know, okay, am I going to need to make an inference? Am I supposed to connect the texts? So for reading and writing, a really strong strategy is to look at the prompt first. So in this case, we are going to be describing the main purpose. So as we go through and read, that's what we're thinking about. Is this the main purpose? So let's go ahead and kind of look at what's important. So we know that during the 19th century, many naturalists traveled widely to document plants and animals previously unknown in European science. So why I did 19th century is it gives me a time frame, and I can see as a quick glance, 19th is in a lot of these answer choices. Then I underlined naturalist because I know that that's what we're talking about. I know the action that the naturalist did was to document, and they were documenting things that were unknown. So that's why I kind of thought about those 4 words. These expeditions often resulted in richly illustrated books. Now, this part's next thing is important. Notice the word however. Anytime we see things like however or but, usually it means that there's a contradiction coming. So, however, some naturalists criticize, so not all, but some, so we had many up here, now we have some naturalists criticized, sad face, the practice of exaggerating features of species to make them appear more exotic. So basically, a quick recap is during the 19th century, which was the 1800s, naturalists looked for unknown species. Some of them lied and made them look different than they really were. They exaggerated the features, kind of like a caricature. So which best describes this process? Did they argue that the 19th naturalists should not have traveled abroad? No, there wasn't any type of arguing at all. They disagreed not with the traveling, they disagreed with how they talked about the pictures. To explain why illustrated books of the 19th century were often unreliable. Well, because it doesn't say scientific illustrated books, that's also not the right answer, because it could have been a children's story that was perfectly fine. The issue is that it was the scientific ones that were illustrated by the naturalists that could, not always, have exaggerations. To highlight a tension between scientific accuracy and artistic embellishment. That's going to be the one right there, but let's just double check. It's always good to spend the extra 3 to 5 seconds to double check. To describe how 19th century audiences misunderstood the world. Like, does it use the word 19th century? Is there misunderstandings? Yeah, but that's not the main purpose of the passage. So C would be the best answer. All right, let's take a look at our next question. Passage 2. So we're going to do a quick look at what we have to do. Which choice best captures the function of the underlined sentence, which I didn't underline, she observed to leaders. So let's go right here. And so we know we're really looking at this last sentence. So why is that sentence there? Well, let's read the whole thing. In her diary, an early suffragist. Now, a suffragist is a person who campaigned for women's voting. So an early suffragist reflected on the difficulty of persuading her neighbors to support the women's right to vote. So that's what we know what's going on. But now we got to say, why was this other sentence there? She observed that while many agreed privately, few were willing to support in public, fearing disapproval from community leaders. So we know the general statement is a suffragist was thinking about some of the challenges. Now we're going into some specifics. People agreed privately, but not in public. So, which is the best choice? Remember, you can always pause the video and figure it out before we go over it together. All right. To introduce evidence of widespread enthusiasm. Well, if people agreed privately but not publicly, that's not widespread. It provides an example of obstacles suffragists faced in gaining public support. That seems like it could be pretty good. An obstacle is like people supported privately but not publicly. That could work. It describes how suffragists convinced hesitant neighbors to join their meetings. I mean, is it true that there were hesitant neighbors? Yes. Does it say anything about them going publicly to meetings? No. So this is a good example of a good distractor. Half of it is true. Some of the neighbors were hesitant. But what's not true is them going to the meetings. Half truth, not correct. It explains why suffragists chose not to share their opinions openly. Well, this is another one where they're trying to distract you because the neighbors wouldn't share their opinions openly. But the suffragists did. They're telling everyone women deserve the right to vote. So half of it seems true. Yes, there was a population of people who did not like to share their views openly, but it wasn't the suffragists. It was the neighbors. All right, let's go to the next one. I'm going to go a little bit faster now that you're getting the idea. And again, you can always pause and do it first. Let's take a look at the question. Which choice best states the function of the underlined quotation? And so again, it's not underlined, but that's what they're talking about. So we're going to think about, why did the author mention pleasure and instruction? In 1854, the first public aquarium in the United States was opened in New York City. So we know we're talking about 1854, New York City, and aquariums. Visitors marveled at species. Marveled is like, hello, Captain Marvel, Marvel movies, excitement, wow, at species of fish and marine plants that had never been seen before. A reporter at the time noted that the aquarium provided both pleasure, yay, and instruction, learning, as the public could enjoy the beauty of the exhibits while learning the scientific facts. So why would the reporter say pleasure and instruction? It shows that the visitors were skeptical of this aquarium's scientific value. Like, I didn't see that at all. So that's a no. It supports the idea that the aquarium served educational, that can relate to instruction, and entertainment, that could relate to pleasure purposes. So I'm really confident that that's the right one, but let's just keep going. It demonstrates how the aquarium failed to attract large audiences. That's not mentioned at all. That's not even after it. It's not even like talked about. It suggests that scientists disapproved of the aquarium's dual purpose. Is there a dual purpose? It kind of worked that way, but there's no mention of any scientists being upset. So that's why letter B is the best and correct answer.